What if the council meeting in Revenge of the Sith played out differently, where instead of just Yoda going to Kashyyyk, it ended up being more than him, with Anakin and Obi-Wan going along with him? How would the events play out? Would Anakin Skywalker still turn to the dark side? That's the question we're going to answer today. It's going to be a fun one. I had a lot of fun writing this. It's quite long. I guess I don't know how long it's going to go because I'm recording this before I record the actual video, but hey, it's going to be fun. I was tempted to cut into 2 parts, but I didn't want to. I don't really like doing the 2-part thing, so we're going to stick with 1 part. See how long it goes. But thanks a lot. Please do leave a like. It helps more than you know. Subscribe and leave a comment. What do you want to see in the next fanfiction, or just if you enjoy this one? Alright, enough, right? Let's get to the story right now. Our story begins with a council meeting in session. Yoda was on Kashyyyk already, looking at the rest of the council as they weighed this next decision. Separatist droid leader General Grievous had been spotted on Utapau, and Yoda had made the executive move to send Jedi Master Luminara Unduli and Quinlan Vos to eliminate him. Luminara and Quinlan had been on Kashyyyk with Yoda, and now Kashyyyk was in need of 2 new Jedi, as the battle was set to begin soon. After some deliberation, Master Ki-Adi-Mundi spoke up, saying that Obi-Wan should be one of the Jedi to go, and Obi-Wan hesitantly agreed, saying that he would only go, though, if Anakin could go with him. Kenobi could sense Anakin was in need of a distraction, and this perhaps was perfect. The Council did want Anakin to spy on Palpatine, but that could perhaps wait until Grievous was dead and Kashyyyk was won. It was settled then. Obi-Wan and Anakin would meet Yoda on Kashyyyk, while Luminara and Quinlan went to Grievous. In Palpatine's office, Anakin went and told the Chancellor about his new mission, and how he was grateful to the Jedi for letting him go with Obi-Wan. Palpatine's hands were a bit tied. He wanted to reveal himself, but Anakin had just enough faith restored in the Jedi, and the war ending soon, that it just didn't make sense right now. He would wait until Anakin returned to take him as his apprentice. And so the 2 Jedi took off for Kashyyyk in what was set to be a final battle of the war. But meanwhile, on Coruscant, Mace Windu, along with Masters Kit Fisto, Saesee Tiin, and Agan Kolar, finally had time to investigate a strong lead to the Sith Lord. Before the attack on Coruscant, Clone Intelligence, along with Mace Windu, had discovered a hidden speeder that led from a hidden Sith lair in the works all the way to underneath the building where many senators lived. So the Jedi Masters spent hours upon hours here, dedicated, following a path of different footprints, DNA scans, anything they could from the clone intelligence, until they came to the worst conclusion, a bone-chilling conclusion. The trail led directly from the Chancellor's office, down to the speeder, then to the Sith lair. The Jedi Masters could only think of one conclusion for it all. Chancellor Palpatine was in direct contact with Darth Sidious. Their worst fears had been realized, and without contacting Yoda or the Council, the 4 quickly went to arrest the Chancellor for conspiring with the Separatists. They didn't have time to contact the Council. They had to do this now. They had to arrest Palpatine before he told Sidious about the Jedi going to face Grievous. On Kashyyyk, Yoda, Skywalker, and Kenobi were all leading clone battalions into battle. Obi-Wan had brought Cody and some of the 212th. Anakin had Commander Oppo and some of the 501st, while Yoda had Gree and the 41st Elite Corps. Some of the 212th and 501st were still on Coruscant, but a lot of them were here to help. The Republic armies had teamed up with the Wookiees, and they were pushing the Separatists back in this battle. 3 greatest Jedi of the Clone Wars were winning the final battle, or so they thought what was the final battle. On Utapau, Luminara, Quinlan, and their clone troopers had destroyed General Grievous and were winning the battle here. All was going well for the Republic across the galaxy. All was well, and Mace Windu had other plans. Back in Palpatine's office, Palpatine himself scowled as he learned of Grievous's destruction and the battles across the galaxy going well for the Republic. He had to act fast, and he knew it was time, as Masters Windu, Fisto, Tiin, and Kolar emerged and told Chancellor Palpatine that he was under arrest. They didn't ignite their lightsabers, as Palpatine seemed like no threat, as Sidious was nowhere to be found. It was just the treasonous Chancellor, the Jedi thought. But before the Jedi could even realize their fateful error, lightning was spit at them, sending all four crashing into the wall. Windu got up slowly, vision blurry, to see a red lightsaber pierce Sazy Tin. He looked to Aegon Kolar, dead. The lightning had burned right through him. He ignited his own lightsaber now, as he watched Kit Fisto get his arms cut off and get thrown out the window. Darth Sidious had the element of surprise completely in his favor. He used a force scream, spinning at Windu in the air, calling upon the full power of the dark side. Windu blocked a few strikes, but he never had a chance, as he felt a lightsaber pierce from beneath his jaw. His final realization was that he'd been serving under a Sith Lord for years. His entire world shattered as he died. Darth Sidious stepped back, letting the dark side wash over him. Somehow, the Jedi found out he was working with the Sith, but luckily, they didn't know that he was the Sith. He had the element of surprise, and he used it perfectly. Sidious just couldn't help but wish Anakin was here. It was his destiny. But alas, Sidious could adjust. He'd sent the bounty hunters to Kashyyyk in case it came to this. They would aid with his next order. The Chosen One must die if he would not be by his side. And so Darth Sidious ordered all clones across the galaxy to execute Order 66. The temple was to be massacred by the Coruscant Guard along with any of the 501st and 212th that didn't go to Kashyyyk. Barriss Offee, someone Palpatine had been in contact with, helped in the temple, along with the Inquisitors Palpatine had been grooming for this. And Palpatine had one more thing under his sleeve. Coming back from Mandalore, he ordered the clones to free Darth Maul and help them kill Ahsoka Tano. On Kashyyyk, Anakin and Obi-Wan were regrouping with Yoda as the Republic pushed the Separatists back. As they talked, all three of the Jedi felt a strong vergence in the Force. Death, suffering, pain, destruction for Jedi across the galaxy. And as they tried to figure out what was happening, Cody, Oppo, and Gree went into a hologram message nearby. They received their orders. The Jedi were to be killed. Raising their weapons, they fired. Anakin and Obi-Wan blocked the blasts just in time, as Yoda force-pushed them off the edge of the canopy. Realizing now that this was happening across the galaxy, the three Jedi began running with Chewbacca and Tarful to find an escape ship. Luckily, Yoda always had one hidden away in case a battle went terribly, and so the Jedi ran to the forest to find it. The path to the ship was treacherous, as the Jedi had to either hide or cut down the soldiers they'd served with for years. The clones had no mercy, so the Jedi couldn't either, and as they made their way, Anakin came across a clone he recognized to be Kix. Disarming him, Anakin removed his helmet, demanding to know what was going on. And as he did so, Anakin had flashbacks to Fives. Kix seemed to be going insane with hatred in his eyes. He repeated, "Good soldiers follow orders," and "Die Jedi," over and over, saying nothing else. Anakin knew now that Fives was on to something. He remembered Fives saying, "It's a plot against the Jedi. It goes all the way to the top," and he even mentioned the Chancellor. Anakin now knocked Kix unconscious, and then recalled the seeds Palpatine had placed in his own mind for years about being against the Jedi. With tears in his eyes, Anakin told the other two that this was somehow all from Palpatine. They continued on, killing clones and low-level bounty hunters until they were able to find Yoda's ship hidden away. As they were getting in, another bounty hunter watched from a distance. Bossk was in the trees. He had orders to kill Anakin for an insane reward. Palpatine could not afford to have Anakin around for any longer, so Bossk aimed at his head and fired. With a roar, Chewbacca jumped in front of the blast, taking it in the shoulder, as Tarful took out Bossk with his bowcaster. The Jedi genuinely thanked the Wookiees. Anakin may not be alive without Chewbacca, and they took off for the stars. After some time, the three Jedi found a friendly ship. They boarded to find Bail Organa and Padme Amidala. They'd taken an Alderaanian cruiser to find any surviving Jedi, and luckily Padme knew that Anakin was on Kashyyyk with Yoda and Obi-Wan. Anakin hugged her, checking on the baby right in front of Yoda and Obi-Wan, That was the least of their worries now, and it really wasn't even a surprise to see those two embrace in such a way. Bail explained to them that this was happening across the galaxy, that he'd been to the Jedi Temple, and it was destroyed. The Jedi knew they had to get there soon, and disable the all-clear signal to hopefully save any Jedi that could be saved across the galaxy. Bail and Padme were called to a mandatory meeting in the Senate, giving the Jedi the perfect opportunity to get to the temple and disable the beacon. And so they went their separate ways, Bail and Padme to watch as Palpatine declares himself Emperor, and the Jedi to the temple beacon. On the way, Anakin checked the security recordings and was broken by what he saw. Chancellor Palpatine was a Sith Lord, and kneeling before him, Barriss Offee, the former Jedi that had ruined Ahsoka, and Maul, the former Sith that Ahsoka had captured. The only way he could have gotten here was at the death of Ahsoka, and Anakin was terribly angry. His father figure, Palpatine, had manipulated him and the war for years. Then, his former Padawan had died because of it all. Anakin swore now to Yoda and Obi-Wan that he would kill the Sith. And they made their way to the beacon, where Anakin himself changed the message. He told any listening Jedi to hide. For now. This was not the end. Anakin said he was the chosen one, and when it was time, the Jedi would re-emerge, and they would win. But in the meantime, they had a chance to kill Sidious. The Senate meeting would be over, and he should be alone. The Jedi would go to him now and destroy the Sith. Darth Sidious sat in his own office below the Senate chambers. He could feel a strong presence in the Force, making its way to him now. He knew Anakin and perhaps Yoda and Obi-Wan were alive. He had no confirmation of their deaths on Kashyyyk, despite sending so many there. The three Jedi had killed or evaded all of their enemies on that blasted Wookiee planet. Sidious had now spread out a great many clones throughout the Senate chamber as a Jedi trap. Unfortunately, Maul and Barriss were out eliminating the Separatists, leaving him alone with the clones for now. And Sidious looked to the door to see Yoda, Anakin, and Obi-Wan emerge. Sidious knew he was no match for all three, angry that all of them survived. But still, he shot lightning, igniting his lightsaber as if to pretend he was ready for the fight. As the Jedi charged, he knew now that Anakin was for sure lost to him for good. And now, Anakin would die. Sidious opened the Senate chambers and took the fight to the Senate pods. The Jedi followed, realizing too late their mistake. Hiding inside hundreds of pods, clone troopers began firing at the Jedi. Sidious laughed as the Jedi attempted to deflect blasts from every direction. Anakin watched as Yoda was hit in the shoulder, falling down. He looked to Obi-Wan, cornered, hiding as clones converged on him, and as Anakin deflected blaster bolts, lightning engulfed him. Struggling to block as much as he could with his lightsaber, he watched as Yoda and Obi-Wan were surrounded. This may be their end. But then Anakin heard a blast to the wall behind him, then another, and another. Smoke, dust, and fire filled the air as Anakin pushed Sidious, slamming into the ground where Yoda and Obi-Wan were, sending clones flying. Obi-Wan stood up, now back to back with Anakin, killing any remaining clones. Smoke now hid them, and the Jedi grabbed Yoda, leaping blindly through the hole in the Senate wall to find a Naboo Royal starfighter. Climbing up the ramp, the ship flew away as lightning just missed it. Yoda was nursing a shoulder wound, but then three Jedi were all alive. They looked now to see Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Padme in the ship with a pilot flying away. Anakin had informed Padme of the fight that they were about to engage in, and she'd gathered Jedi-sympathizing senators and 3 starfighters to come and save them. The 4 starfighters, with a new one added, took off into hyperspace and eventually landed on a hidden-away planet with an old base from a war thousands of years ago. It was a salt planet called Crate, and this was where the seeds of the rebellion would be planted. Soon after landing, Padme gave birth to twins Luke and Leia. Anakin was a father, but he was also a Jedi leader of the resistance to the Empire. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda looked on as roughly 50 people worked on this new base. In time, they would have the people, the the ships, the weapons, and the strength to fight the Empire, to destroy the Sith. But it would take many years, and so the Jedi began to train with each other, while learning to lead a rebellion. 15 years later, the galaxy is ruled by fear. It's surrounded by darkness, suffering under the rule of Emperor Palpatine and his band of Inquisitors led by Darth Maul. One day soon after the war, Darth Maul and Barriss Offee had fought for the place at the rightful side of Darth Sidious. Darth Maul had destroyed her. Around every corner in the galaxy is darkness and suffering. But on a hidden-away planet, perhaps there was enough light to someday destroy the darkness, and that day was nearly here. Anakin Skywalker, now 37 years old, watched in the training room as his two 15-year-old children trained in the ways of the Force with a much older-looking Yoda. Anakin looked to the doorway now, where Obi-Wan was in the fully stocked hangar bay, talking with clone troopers Rex, Gregor, and Wolf. The three clones had joined the rebellion that Anakin was growing soon after Anakin had found someone else to join his side. Ahsoka. In what was the happiest day since his children were born, Anakin had discovered that Ahsoka and Rex had survived, despite Maul and the clones attacking her after Mandalore. And now she was off with the clone troopers to get the other rebel cells ready. War was finally upon them. For 15 years, the Jedi had trained while the rebellion had grown immensely in people, ships, weapons from all across the galaxy. There were many sympathizers, and they had gone on many missions to find rebel sympathizers, all while keeping the Krayt base extremely secret. The Empire had come close to finding Krayt, but had never actually done it, and tomorrow the rebellion would gather everyone and head to Ryloth, where it was said Palpatine was to be visiting. There was a flawless plan in place. Everything was ready. Across the galaxy, rebels were waiting in the wings for Anakin to make the call to head to Ryloth. Some of the rebels working with Anakin and the Jedi included the Ghost Crew, led by Hera Syndulla and Jedi Kanan Jarrus, with his Padawan Ezra Bridger. Anakin had grown quite fond of them, seeing a lot of himself in Ezra. He'd even taken some time to give him a few lessons alone, just the two of them. Anakin had also played a large role in convincing Jedi Cal Kestis to gather his crew aboard the Mantis. Anakin remembered Cassian Andor and his crew. He remembered Chewbacca saving him on Kashyyyk, and then joining the rebellion, along with his new scruffy friend, and they flew a ship that Anakin hoped to fly himself one day. Many other rebel leaders had emerged, and they were ready. Though nerves were higher than ever, as this was the battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Anakin looked back to Luke and Leia training with Yoda, as Obi-Wan took a seat next to him. They would win, and Anakin would fulfill his destiny. On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine stared at a young, dark Jedi named Bode. Years ago, Palpatine had hired him to serve as a double agent in exchange for his daughter's safety, and Bode had eventually made his way to Krayt with Cal Kestis one day, and through his networking, he found out the rebels were about to launch an attack from Krayt, led by Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. Palpatine had spent 15 years trying to find these specific Jedi, and now he'd done it right as they were about to attack. This information from Bode would be their undoing, and so Palpatine had Bode arrested for execution for being a Jedi, despite his help, then made his way to his Imperial fleet. Soon, this tiny rebellion would be destroyed before it could ever get started. Soon after Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda stood together as ships were being readied, soldiers were being assigned transports, and everyone was being prepared. It was reported that Palpatine had left Coruscant, and from their intel, the rebellion knew that he was going to Ryloth. As the Jedi looked on at their base, at their achievement in gathering people to do what was right, Padme came frantically running in. She'd been in the security wing when it was reported that massive star destroyers were approaching from hyperspace. Running to the open door, the Jedi and Padme saw 3 star destroyers emerge from hyperspace, and in the same moment, all 3 Jedi immediately knew that Darth Sidious and Darth Maul were aboard one of them. Anakin sounded the alarm, and the emergency protocols went into effect. The hidden black entrance was prepped for launching transports, but as the hangar door was opened, TIE bombers destroyed the transports. There were around 500 rebels here, with thousands more scattered across the galaxy, but this was the main base, with most of the supplies for battle. It was clear now that Sidious had received inside information. Padme ran to call Ahsoka, to let her and the rest of the rebellion know that the fight was here. The only advantage left was that Palpatine didn't know the size of the rebellion across the galaxy. With escape routes damaged, the rebels prepared to fight, but as the 3 Jedi looked outside again, the scene was horrific. The Empire was not messing around. In no time at all, many AT-AT walkers, AT-ST walkers, TIE fighters, bombers, and stormtrooper battalions were in place, staring at the base. One ship flew to the center of it all, a Sith infiltrator, a large Sith infiltrator, easily carrying Sidious Maul. The 3 Jedi locked eyes, knowing this may be the end. Together, they walked to the opening, staring the Empire head-on. Darth Sidious gave a twisted smile, ordering the Empire to fire at the Jedi. And so they did, walkers, troopers, ships, all firing at the Jedi. And together, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda used a power they'd mastered together over 15 years. They created an impenetrable force shield around the entrance. The giant door to the base was also strong enough to withstand a ton of fire. The Empire fired, raining blaster fire on the Jedi, but the shield held strong. Anakin in the middle, Yoda on the right, Kenobi on the left. And after a minute, Luke and Leia came to aid in the force shield as Anakin turned his focus to the ships. Grabbing a TIE fighter, he crashed it into an AT-AT, then another TIE, and another. His power had grown significantly in the 15 years, and the force shield was held. Anakin destroyed ships, causing stormtroopers to disperse from their organized formations. Troopers were destroyed, ships were crashing. The Empire was losing a bit of ground as Anakin controlled the skies with the Force. Then, the ramp to the Sith infiltrator opened, and the Sith stepped out onto it. With immense power, Maul and Sidious fired lightning as hard as they could at the shield. The Jedi would die today. The Sith were determined, and with the power of the Sith overwhelming the shield, Anakin had to focus on reinforcing it. The power was breaking the shield. Luke fell backward now, followed by Leia. Obi-Wan and Anakin were blasted backwards, and they looked on as the Empire continued to fire. They looked to Yoda, who was alone, eyes closed, giving himself fully to the Force. He held the shield up all by himself, using his full power. They heard Sidious laugh as it echoed across Crate, the setting sun seeming to symbolize the falling base. And right as the Empire was about to break Yoda, they were distracted as hundreds of rebel ships emerged from hyperspace. Ahsoka had received Padme's call. They were taking the Star Destroyers by surprise, flying down to the surface. With the distraction, Yoda let go, falling to the ground. Obi-Wan, Anakin, Luke, and Leia ran to him, as Yoda died from exhaustion right there. He was able to express how proud he was of them, and that the light side would prevail, right as his body disappeared to the Force. The Rebellion and Jedi would honor his death. They'd taken the Empire by surprise. They could never have known just how strong this rebellion had grown. And the Jedi looked outside to the entrance to see hundreds of rebel ships taking the Empire from behind. They had the full advantage. Rebel ships were flying through, destroying the Empire. Anakin saw the Ghost. He saw the Mantis. He saw Ahsoka's ship, so many more that he recognized. Over the years, Ahsoka, Bail, Mon Mothma, and others had gathered more rebels than Anakin could ever have thought. Transports in the back let out hundreds more rebels on the surface as they charged the Empire. Anakin and Obi-Wan looked up to see ships being blasted out of the air now, from Force lightning. Sidious was still in control, destroying rebel ships himself. Anakin instructed Luke and Leia to assist the rebels on the ground, while Anakin and Obi-Wan took off. Leaping from ship to ship in the air, Anakin and Obi-Wan took one final leap towards the Sith infiltrator. Landing on the ramp, they saw Sidious and Maul for the first time in years. The Sith ignited their red blades, the rebel ships free from the lightning, and the battle ensued. With explosions all around them, Skywalker and Kenobi fought Maul and Sidious. Anakin, fueled by his conflict, by his emotions, which were now under his own control, leaped forward, engaging Maul in a flurry of strikes. Maul's aggressive attacks were met with Anakin's power, creating a crazy display of lightsabers. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan confronted Sidious, evoking lessons of his many years training with Anakin and Yoda. He was extremely powerful, his blue lightsaber clashing with Sidious, the room filling with the hum of the lightsabers. Despite Sidious's power, Obi-Wan was able to maintain right with him, and the space around them trembled now with the commotion of the battle outside. Blaster fire, explosions rocking the ship as the rebellion and the Empire fought for control of Krayt, control of the galaxy. As the battle intensified, Anakin and Obi-Wan switched, facing off against the Sith Lords with a renewed power. Anakin now against Sidious, who he hated to his core. Obi-Wan versus Maul, a rivalry so many years in the making. This is where it would all end. And as the battle wore on, the Sith infiltrator ship would continue to suffer damage from the chaos of the battle, explosions rocking it, causing it to shake, putting all of the warriors off balance. The structural integrity weakened, alarms blaring through the ship. Undeterred, Anakin and Obi-Wan pressed their advantage, determined to defeat their old rivals. Combining their skills, they attacked in perfect harmony, catching the Sith as they were off balance. They did fight back with their dark side power, but the Jedi were too much to handle. With one final strike, Anakin and Obi-Wan disarmed the Sith at the same time. Obi-Wan cut Maul across his chest, and Anakin was about to kill Sidious when an explosion rocked the ship. Smoke filled the air, sparks flying from damaged consoles. Realizing the ship was about to explode, the Jedi rushed to escape the crumbling vessel. Sidious was nowhere to be found. They navigated through the chaos, making their way to the ship's ramp, and just as they reached the end, the Sith infiltrator ship could take no more. The vessel erupted into a massive explosion. The Jedi were caught in the blast, but they used the Force to protect them, floating to the ground, robes on fire, but landing safely amongst the dying battle. Anakin and Obi-Wan stood now in the middle of the battlefield, lightsabers ignited, looking around as blaster fire ceased and rebel ships began to land. They had won. The rebellion had grown far past anything Darth Sidious could ever have expected. He truly underestimated them, and Anakin looked to the exploding ruins of the Sith infiltrator. A dark figure stumbled to his feet, falling back to the ground. Sidious was alive, but broken from the explosion, and together Anakin and Obi-Wan walked to the Sith Lord. Ahsoka, Kanan, Ezra, and Cal watched as the Jedi Masters put their sabers to the neck of the fallen Sith Lord. Anakin was unsure of what to do. Sidious had caused pain to trillions, but he was unarmed. Then the ghost of Yoda appeared and gave Anakin a proud nod. Anakin killed Sidious, marking the beginning of the end for the Empire, the age of a new republic. 5 years later, Anakin and Obi-Wan had become co-Grand Masters of a new Jedi Order. The council consisted of Anakin, Obi-Wan, Kanan Jarrus, Cal Kestis, Ahsoka Tano, Eno Cordova, Kento Merrick, and Shaq T. Luke, Leia, Ezra, and Galen Merrick were the strongest Jedi students, with many more now in training. The Empire was wiped out, and a new republic was established with Mon Mothma as a senator. The Empire would always linger, but the new republic was strong, with the leadership of Jedi playing a larger influence, but a more balanced influence. Anakin and Padme lived on happily married with their children, with the life they always wanted. And that's where this one ends today, just under 30 minutes. Cool. Hope you enjoyed. I didn't want to call it What If Anakin Didn't Turn to the Dark Side, because, I don't know, maybe I'll make that as a separate video someday. So I wanted to do this like, what if he went to Kashyyyk and it just goes crazy? Also thought about the title, just what if Anakin led the rebellion? But it's, I wanted to also talk about all the events that take place before that. I don't know. Who cares about title talk? Do you care? Who cares? Anyways, thanks a ton for watching. I'm back from vacation now, so videos gonna be much more regular, much better. I'm excited to be back. Gonna be streaming more videos, more content, more everything. So, thanks a ton for watching. Maybe I'll keep talking until this hits 30 minutes. Appreciate each and every one of you, truly. So, yeah, if you like this one, I have so many more fanfictions, so many more what if videos in a playlist on this channel. so check those out. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.